welcome, namaskar. What comes to our mind when we listen to the word ghost? Something supernatural elements that horrify us, terrify us, haunt us. But that definitely not the case always, as in Ibsen's play Ghost. Today's video is on Ibsen's Ghost.
So, firstly, let's know about the playwright. Henrik Ibsen was a Norwegian playwright of 19th century. He was born in port town of Skien in Norway in an affluent merchant family. Ibsen is regarded as one of the founders of modernism in theatre. He is often called as the father of realism. He brought plays which were realistic, and his plays showcased the contemporary society and people in Europe. He chose to write plays to talk about the vices and the difficulties of European society of his time. He became famous as one of the most influential dramatists of his time. He died in 906. Ibsen's dramatic works are large in number. He wrote poetry as well, but his focus was to write plays to reform society. Some of his best works in theatre are Pillars of the Civilization, A Doll's House. This play, Doll's House, is the most read and performed play of Ibsen, and the students of English literature have to read this play in their colleges and universities in any part of Ibsen. They have strong cultural and literary legacy. Satyajit Ray's Ganashotru, starring Soumitra Chattopadhyay as a doctor in the center of the film, is based on Ibsen's An Enemy of the People. The Wild Duck and Rosemar's Psalm are the works of Ibsen's most mature phase of his dramatic. Among these plays, A Doll's House and Ghost made Ibsen a household name in 19th century Europe, and his fame spread all over the world. Now, let's talk about the features of his plays. Every dramatist has his own style and aesthetics. Talking about the characteristics of Ibsen, his plays are packed with social realism. He wrote about the life and people he saw. The drama of ideas. In his play, we find characters are encountering each other with different and opposite ideas, thoughts, beliefs, and Ibsen talks about the middle class family. The society in his time was highly capitalistic in Europe. Capitalism as the peril for the building of a healthy and developed society. Ibsen is quite radical in nature, questioning traditional practices, moral codes, social norms, etc. He talks about the women in his plays. In the play Ghosts, the central Mrs. Ibsen, in his personal life, went through financial crisis. It left a deep impact on him. So the finance is the constant thing we find in almost all of his plays. Besides, he talked about venereal diseases in the play Ghost, we will find the instance of it and it will play a crucial theme in the play. Euthanasia or wishful death is often in his play are the things which made Ibsen a controversial figure in Europe and a controversial and radical literary figure. Ibsen got very negative critical reception in the beginning. He had an explosive effect on intellectual circles with his plays. He became a constant topic in the literary, social, and political discussion. He was notable for raising alarm among conservative minds. He had to face censorship and bans. His writings were labeled immoral, loathsome, dirty, sensuous at his time. His association with scandals stopped him from being awarded with Nobel Prize. But it is William Archer attacked the critics of Ibsen, appreciating his modern thoughts. G.B. Shaw, James Joyce, Arthur Miller, Oscar Wilde, Eugene O'Neill were the few among his followers, and they greatly admired Ibsen and took inspiration. He is the most frequently performed dramatist in the world after Shakespeare, and A Doll's House, probably his masterpiece, was the world's most performed play in 2006. His reputation is now resting on not only as a European dramatist but as one of the world's greatest dramatists. What is in the book that most of the theatre scholars hated it and then it gained the status of a classic later? Let's look into it. The idea that conflict is the soul of a play is age old. The conflicts that form the spirit of Ibsen's Ghosts are that between path of duty and joy of life, custom and liberty, the inside world and the outer world, light and darkness, secrets and revelation, past and present, and so on. The secrets that we hide inside our heart, afraiding the norms of system and morality, bearing their terrible pangs, haunt us lifelong like ghosts. In Mrs. Alving's definition, who is the protagonist of the play, the ghost or the ghost like are not just matter of inheritance from mother and father, but also of all sorts of dead ideas and beliefs. This general idea of inheritance is being passed down from father to son, which Ibsen employs to such dramatic and philosophical effects in this play. Talking about the setting of the play, the setting is Mrs. Alving's estate by large forage in West Norway. So the play takes place in the estate of Mrs. Alvings, who lives in West Norway, and the scene is one of rain, fog, general grayness. The atmosphere here works as the objective correlative. Ibsen's most plays are set in Norway, often in places reminiscent of, say, town, the port town where he grew up. Ibsen lived for 27 years in Italy and Germany and rarely visited Norway during his most productive years. The movement in the play is one between an enclosed space and another, larger and freer one, outdoors or elsewhere. In Mrs. Alving's son Oswald's case, this elsewhere is Paris, where one can lead a free life, whereas Mrs. Alving's house is dark and dead. Get introduced with the characters in the play. First character is Mrs. Helen Elving, widow of Captain Elving, the late Chamberlain to the King. Here, Mrs. Alving is the protagonist and central woman character. The second one is Oswald Alving. Oswald Alving is Mrs. Alving's son, who is a young painter and he lives in Paris. Third character is Pastor Manders. He is a clergyman, family friend of Alving's. He is now helping Mrs. Alving in her project of building up an orphanage, taking the whole charge upon himself. Fourth character, Jacob Engstrand. He is an old carpenter now working in the orphanage. And the last character and the second female character is Regina Engstrand. She is the daughter of Jacob Engstrand and she works as Mrs. Alving's maid.